I gotta get a Greenstein or a Rosenblatt of my very own.
When You Wish Upon a Weinstein is what I find to be a very important episode of Family Guy.
Not only was it the last pre-cancellation episode of Family Guy to air, it's also the first banned Family Guy episode. Though considering the other banned Family Guy episodes, this episode looks extremely tame in comparison.
Oh!
Despite its shaky history, I still think that When You Wish Upon a Weinstein is a good episode of the classic years. I love its story, the humor, the Jewish didn't feel very stereotyped, and it tells a very surprising, mature moral about how success isn't based on the religion of someone, but the person themselves. Which, considering how the world likes to stereotype certain groups, religions, and races, even to this day, is quite a powerful and timeless moral. But instead of talking about the deeper history of the episode, today we're going to do something different. We are going to look at a script of the episode dating from 1999, and not just any old script, rather an early draft of the episode used for the table read. Now, some of you might be asking, what's a table read? Well, for those in the cheap seats, a table read, aka a read-through, is when the actors, executive producers, writers, etc. of a show or movie gather together to read the screenplay or script of the new episode so far. It's not a first draft, but it's nowhere near finalized. It's just to see what works, what doesn't work, what jokes are funny, what jokes aren't funny, who's in character, who was out of character. It's like a test run without the kinks fully figured out. And boy, is this episode completely different from the final in jokes, story, and its message. And today, we're going to see this never before seen alternate version of the episode. So without further ado, let's dive into this script. Before we start, I want to give a huge thank you to @ClassicSwim from Twitter. All the scans seen in this video are from him and his Table Dive series on Twitter. A link of his socials and the thread that originally had all the pictures will be in the description below. Jumping into Act 1, and immediately we can see some differences. It starts in the Griffin's garage, unlike most episodes that start in the living room. I think it's a nice change of pace for the repetitiveness of always seeing the living room. Peter is seen sweeping in the garage when he comes across Chris hitting himself with a mallet. The reason why Chris is doing that is because he's too chicken to ask out a girl he likes at school, called Polina. Chris even mentions that he gets all nervous and sweaty when he's around Polina. Gross. And Peter assumes that for Chris being gay, and leading to an Al Gore is gay joke. Really dating this episode, and unfortunately this isn't the last one. To help Chris with his girl problem, Peter tells a story from 2 years ago. Or, well, 1 year ago to please Chris when he laments how Stewie won't be in the story. The story in question is the regular story from the final episode, but slightly altered. In this altered version, Stewie has just been born and Chris is off at sleepaway camp, meaning that Chris's involvement in the story from the televised version is not present. The scene where the con salesman drops by to give Peter volcano insurance is still here like in the final, although before that, there's a lost Ted Danson cutaway gag shortly before he drops by, showing that the table draft did have some things in common with the final version. Now here's a difference found in this draft. In this flashback, Meg originally didn't wear glasses, and she has to get some after being told she needs some by her school nurse. Unlike the final, where she was always wearing glasses, and this episode had Stewie break Meg's glasses, all for Meg watching him sleep. Yes, he's that petty. Also, Peter reveals that he has ADHD in this moment. We also get a volcano-based cutaway instead of the cloud-based cutaway found in the final. And we also see the cut Lisa Loebby joke Seth cracked up about in the Weinstein DVD commentary. Around where Lois calls Peter a child, the scene at the wedding and Peter clapping back is not in this draft. Instead, Peter tries to go to the Kelsey bar from All in the Family, which doesn't work, surprise, surprise. Upset at being a failure, Peter goes to drink his sorrows away at the Drunken Clam, and here's where we get introduced to Man Mountain Mike, who serves as the episode's antagonist of sorts. We have some scrap scenes of Peter proving he's terrible with money and trying to steal Cleveland's money before being threatened. And then we see an overly long Family Guy cutaway with Peter on a vibrating bed that causes mayhem across town, which feels like a joke from Middle Family Guy, not really classic Family Guy. The scenes of Quagmire and Cleveland getting their wads of cash from their Jewish accountants are basically the same, minus some signs of Quagmire's more seedy nature of having children he doesn't want to bother with. And here's another change from the televised version. And there, Cleveland tells Peter that not every Jew is good with their money. While here, Cleveland tells Peter to get his own when the latter asks to borrow his Jew. After this, we get to Peter's song, I Need a Jew, and the lyrics are the exact same, though they're not as descriptive as the final. And to end Act 1, we see Max's original introduction like in the commentary. And I see why Seth likes this version way more. Max is like a more charming version of Mort. Starting Act 2, Peter opens the shed to find Max, and the two scream like that E.T. scene. Back in present day, Chris isn't enjoying the story so far, even though Peter brought Stewie into the story and was willing to add cowboys into the story as well. Something I noticed far more in this version than in the final episode is how less focus it is on Max and his religion. I mean, sure, he wasn't really that much focused in the original episode, but he still had a semi-focus. Here, he's more focused on helping Peter with his stuff, such as helping Peter get charged right at a deli, filing his taxes, and even helping Meg get her new glasses. Peter even shows all this off to Lois like he did it himself, like in the final episode. Except it's missing Lois's comment about the chimp, and it's substituted with Stewie sass instead. Unlike the final, the episode now goes in a different direction where Peter starts to feel ashamed of himself because he thinks he's a failure because this Jewish man is able to do everything that he should be able to do. Like Calico Cops in this scene that was reused for Love Thy Trophy. But Max reveals the reason why he's doing so much better than Peter is because he has chupacs, and helps Peter show that he doesn't need to be Jewish to believe in himself through his song, Never Had a Jewish Friend Like Me. This song, as expected, was scrapped from the final, and as you can tell, is taking clear inspiration from Aladdin's Friend Like Me. And instead of describing it, I'll just let it play for itself. When the song in Act 2 comes to a close, we see that Peter now has reached the conclusion that he has to fight Man Mountain Mike in order to believe in himself. Yes. Now this Act 3 is completely foreign to the original episode, so this will be a new experience for all of us. So let's quickly go in. Peter tells his family about his big fight, and despite meeting the ire of Lois and her not wanting him to fight him, Peter screws himself over big time by calling Man Mountain Mike at 9 o'clock. Because of this, while toasting to Peter one night at the Drunken Clam, Man Mountain Mike goes on TV saying that he's ready to fucking murder Peter in the ring. Yet Peter still stays confident to the night of the fight, with him even giving himself the cool wrestling name of Jennifer Love Hewitt. But as he's about to fight, Max just full on leaves Peter and reveals that he's a woman that's disguised as a chicken, that's disguised as a broom, which joke was reused in 15 Minutes of Shame. So all of Peter's confidence is now completely wiped, and now he's completely fucked. As seen from Stewie's failure commentary, and Man Mountain Mike completely wrecking Peter's ass in the ring. Lois can clearly see that Peter is not going to win this fight, and tries to get him to leave the ring out of fear of what her life will be without him. Yet Peter reveals that he's staying in the ring because Max believed in him, and when Lois finds this out, she lets Peter know that she believes in him, which leads to Peter learning the lesson to believe in himself. And this scene right here basically rounds out the point that I made earlier, where the final had a message about not looking at other religious people differently. Here it's more of a standard believe in yourself moral, really showing how this draft shafts the focus of Judaism compared to the final. With his confidence renewed, Peter beats up Man Mountain Mike in a scene that would look completely horrendous in the quality of seasons 1 and 2, and Chris gets the idea from Peter's story to ask his crush out Polina the next day. And here we get the big reveal that Peter made up the story using objects from the back of the garage wall. And what's funny about this is that if you looked up Man Mountain Mike beforehand, he was a wrestler in the 80s that died of a blood clot in his diabetic leg over 10 years before 1998, before Peter's made up story. Not that Chris pays much mind, and the episode ends with Peter dancing with the broom, ending when you wish upon a Weinstein. Well, I see that you have made it to the end of this video. If you have, I want to say thank you for watching this far, and thank you for sticking by. I know I've been missing for like the past 2 or so years, but I want to try to change that. I want to try to revive this channel and give it a new era. This is like a test run to see if this will work, so we'll see where this goes. But if this is like the last time I upload, thank you for watching, and I'll see you someday.